And this business about knowing the truth gets complicated because it's a step-by-step process. One second. The first step is to be exposed to the truth in some form or shape, is to be exposed to the truth. And when that happens, it happens to you as a person. When it happens to you as a person. So you're exposed to the truth as a person. And then you go through this process of knowing the truth, understanding the truth. I as a person understand the truth. Or I as a person hear the truth. I as a person understand these concepts about the truth. But then the next step is the hard one to take. The next step is the step that much fewer people take, a lot fewer people take. And that is to go from that I know about the truth to I am the truth. That's the step from I know, I understand the concepts about who I am. It's moving from that to I am experiencing myself as the truth. I'm experiencing not that I know who I am, but I'm experiencing being that. That's the step that's the harder one for people to take. So one of the things that these teachings and practices are about is to help people along the way, to help people get from one shore to the next. And that process, that passage, that path, it's often spoken as a path that people walk, a spiritual path, is very challenging and very complicated and very difficult because you're coming out of a dream. And the dream is a dream that almost everybody's dreaming. And so your interaction with the world and with other people is interacting with the dream that everybody's dreaming. And you have been conditioned to believe that the dream is the truth, been conditioned to believe that the dream is reality. So it's like a trance that you're in, and it's understandable that this is a challenging thing. And so everything that you can do, everything that you can learn, everything that you can come to understand, every insight that you can have, everything that you can practice that will give you more footing, more grounding in this so that you can take that step to be what you are, is useful. And in this approach, which is called the direct approach, the thing about this that makes it different from other things is that all along the path, as you go through this process of learning and developing insight and understanding concepts more deeper and practicing things, as you're going through this process, in this direct approach, what is being presented is that at any point during the process, you can transcend the process. At any point during the process, you can experience the truth of who you are, because the truth of who you are is always available, is always the case. And so in this direct approach, we're always talking about, okay, how to use that. How to use that understanding that I am already what I am, as a way of transcending the need to go through a process in time in order to get where I already am. It's interesting that you bring that up, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is the word understanding. The word understanding, I think it's an interesting word to investigate in terms of what is the relationship between the word understanding and the realization of the truth. Because there are many teachers talk about the understanding. Recently I've been studying Ramesh Balsekar a lot, and he actually says the final understanding. And if there is a final understanding, the idea is that if there is a final understanding, that this final understanding will be the last step necessary in order to experience reality and to experience the truth of yourself and experience the way things are. And I think this is a very interesting thing, because one of the things that people struggle with is the idea that if I if I realize the truth, if I am being myself, if I am being who I am, right, then everything will be different. This is one of the reasons, this is what you're talking about, right? Is that if I succeed here and I realize the truth, then I'll be different. I'll see things differently. I won't feel the same way about everything. My moods will change. I'll be enlightened. I'll have clarity. I'll see things differently. I'll be at peace. I'll be able to be happy. I'll enjoy my life. Well, I think one of the reasons that this is problematic for people is that's a naive notion about enlightenment. That's a naive notion about what we're doing here, right? Because the reality of it is, if there's one thing that needs to be understood in order for the word understanding to be useful, it is that you need to understand that you are a programmed, how does Ramesh talk about it? You are a programmed, forget the word that he uses, but you are a programmed brain, and you are a programmed body that exists in this time-space reality. And if there's one thing to understand that's more important than anything, is that programming, it will continue to dominate your attention. That programming will continue to dominate your experience of living your life in this world. It has to, right? Because that program is all about living in this world, is it not? Yeah, it's all about living in this world. So it has to continue to dominate, right? So it's naive to think that you're going to just turn into some kind of superhuman or some kind of spiritually awakened being that's living in this halo of enlightenment, untouched and unblemished by the world, no longer experiencing a physical body, no longer experiencing human emotions, no longer experiencing your involvement in the world and your relationships with people and your relationships in time and your relationship with situations. That's naive, and all you have to do is look at any of the spiritual teachers and see that that was never the case. Their life continued in time as a body, in relationship to other people, in relationship to the situations that they found themselves in. So that must not be the case. It must not be that that's the way this works. And then that goes back to the word understanding, right? If you understand, this is what I was talking to Jim about, because if you understand the truth, that doesn't mean that your understanding of the truth will change the situation that you find yourself in your life. That doesn't mean that at all. So what does it mean? If you understand the truth, if you understand the law of gravity, how do I know? If I explain to you what the law of gravity is, and you have enough basic information to comprehend what I'm talking about, right? If I explain to you the law of gravity, and then I say to you, do you understand the law of gravity now that I've explained it to you? And you say yes. How will I know that you do? If you explain to your child, right, that light, when that light's red, you don't cross the street, right? And you say, do you understand? And the child says, yes, I understand. How do you know that child understood? Yeah, because he doesn't cross the street on the red light, right? So if I say to you, do you understand who you really are? This is very good. This is very important. If I say to you, do you understand who you really are? You've been coming to this class for a while now. You've been exposed to these concepts for a while now. You've heard the explanation of who you really are a lot of different ways by now, right? And you actually experience practicing meditation, which is an opportunity to have a direct connection to who you actually are, right? So if I say to you, do you understand who you actually are? What will your answer be? Yeah, it should be yes, because you've had plenty of time, and I've been like beating you up to ask questions, right? Right? So it would be a reasonable answer to say, yes, I understand who I am, right? And for most of you, you know, you could probably regurgitate some of this information about who it is that you are. So how will I know that you understand who you are?
Behaviors.
Yeah, by your behaviors, right? The same thing as understanding not to cross the street on the red light, right? Here's the problem. It ain't working like that. Because if I say to you, understand who you are, you'll tell me, yes, you understand who you are. But if I follow you around in your life, you're not acting like you know who you are at all. Are you? No. So do you understand who you are? See, this is important, right? Because the answer is, you think you do, right? You think you do understand who you are, right? The only problem with that is the understanding of who you are won't make any difference in terms of the way you're living your life. It won't. That's what you're saying. It's frustrating, isn't it?
I'm going to say I don't understand who I am. Conceptually, I understand who I am, but that's a whole different ballgame.
Well, yeah, but even that you don't understand, even that you understand that you don't understand who you are doesn't make any difference. Right? Even that you understand that you don't understand who you are doesn't make any difference. So what's going on?
So don't we sometimes act like we know who we are?
Yeah, but every even a clock that's broken is telling the right time one time a year.
Right, so we're all broken clocks, but you know, it seems like that's getting us approaching that final piece by being who we are some of the time, being part of this source that we're getting closer and closer.
Yeah, we do evolve. I mean, I used to post things on Facebook, political things. Now I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not going to change anyone else's mind. It's useless. It's just suffering and grinding out worthless stuff. So I don't do any of that.
Okay, good point. So what I'm hearing you say is that I understand who I am. That understanding has not permeated my behavior to any necessarily great degree, or it has to some degree, right? But it hasn't completed itself, right? Here's what I want to say to you. Going back to this direct approach, right? Understanding who you are in terms of this direct approach means that you don't have to be behaving 100% consistent with that understanding. And you can still experience who you are, right? Why? Because of non-duality. What's that mean? It means that who you are, even when you're being who you're not, is being who you are. Can you catch that? Non-duality says is being who you are, even when you're being who you're not, is being who you are. Why? Because that's all there is. And if you could hold it in that context, if you could see it that way, right, then you could accept that it is happening. You have been exposed to the vaccine. Right? You have been exposed to the vaccine. It is happening, right? And while it's happening, you can experience that its happening is complete at any time that you choose. Do you understand what I just said? You have, it has nothing to do with belief, right? You have taken the vaccine. You have heard the word, right? So to speak, right? Right? And you are involved, you are interacting with it, you are practicing meditation, you do have an interest in it. Something is occurring there as far as your self-realization is concerned. Something is occurring there, right? And whatever it is that's occurring there is happening in time, is it not? Yeah, and it's going to take time for whatever is happening there to happen, isn't it? And you can look at that at any time and see that there's been progress. I am not as stupid as I used to be. I'm not as ignorant as I used to be. I am more awake than I used to be. I'm not as hard to get along with as I used to be. I'm not as stupid as I used to be. I don't make as stupid mistakes as I used to make, right? So that's happening. That's happening. And that has to happen the way it happens. Because in the time-space reality in which your brain is conditioned, that all has to work like that. That's the way things work, right? But at any time, while that's happening, you can experience the truth. That's called transcendence, right? Transcendence. One is transformation, and transformation, as time passes, the brain's change, your brain's changing, right? You are changing, right? You're not becoming less mature, you're becoming more mature. You're not becoming more ignorant, you're becoming less ignorant, right? You are behaving more appropriately in the world, right?
That's what most of us are. We're in transference, but not transcendence.
That's why I'm saying what I'm saying, right? Because that process has to run its course. And it can only run its course the way it runs its course. You know, it has to be an interactive reality in which your interaction with the world and your interaction with the people that you're closest to you, right, is being seen in the light of awareness now, right? And so it's changing in a certain direction now, and that direction it's changing in is in the direction of the truth. In the meantime, while that's happening, you can experience the reality of who you are at any time. Why? Because it's already the case. Therefore, what's not changing and what's changing are the same thing. So in other words, you could start being happy now. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait until you're completely changed into a saint.
But it seems temporary because your mind always pushes back into the duality.
That's right. It seems temporary, right? But you can perceive it from in a transcendental way, where you understand that the reason it seems temporary is because you're looking at it in the condition of time. You take time away, and it's all over. If you take time away, it's all over. If you take time away, the story's over. If you take time away, who you are is easy to see that who you are is who you've always been.
When you're living in this world, time rules everything, so it's very hard to, be in your body and take time.
Well, that's a particular point of view, right? That is a point of view that is given by the personality and the personality's materialism and the personality's involvement in the reality that's involved with, right? But you can understand that what I just said, can't you? Therefore, it's not the whole story. The awareness of what's happening is what I'm talking about. You can be aware of all of that's happening and know that the awareness that you are of all of that's happening changes the way all of that occurs to you, doesn't it? Isn't it true? That the awareness that you are, especially when you know yourself to be that awareness, the awareness that you are, when that awareness is aware of what's happening and sees it for what it is, right, changes the way what it is occurs. I don't see my wife the same as I can't say the same as I saw her because she wasn't my first wife. Right? But I don't see human beings the same way as I saw human beings before I woke up. Do you understand the difference? I don't see them to be the same, right? So who seeing them changes the way who I see occurs for me. Who I am being when I see the world changes the way the world occurs for me. Do you get that? Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you have to stop being a personality. No. All it means is that you know about personality as something that is not the whole story. See, so for somebody who's new to these teachings, you would say, well, you know that the personality is not real, is not who you are, right? But then if you become more advanced in these understandings, you come to realize through non-duality that that's just a step in the process of realizing the truth. The full truth is, you know, that the personality is the self. So in my book, I say, you know, dying to live, you have to die as that personality in order to wake up and be born as what you are, right? It's only said that way because of who it's being said to. That's all. It's being said that way because of who it's being said to. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense at all. But once you understand that, the next step is to realize that when you're being the person, you're still God. So it's a complete circle. First you have to realize that you're not who you think you are. Then you have to realize that you are who you think you are. It has to be true that you are who you think you are, because there is nothing but consciousness. It has to be true that you are who you think you are, because who you think you are is nothing other than a optical, as Einstein said, is nothing other than an optical illusion. Who you think you are is nothing other than a limited conceptual understanding of reality. But that doesn't mean that it's not reality, right? It's a limited conceptual understanding of reality, but that doesn't mean it's not reality. And so when you go through this whole process, you end up on the other side. You end up coming back to where you started again. As they say in Buddhism, you leave one shore, you end up on the other shore, and you realize that you never left the first shore. You leave one shore, you end up on the other shore, and you realize you never left the other shore. It's like the Rumi saying, I knocked on the door and said, let me in. The door opened, and I realized I was on the other side. That's exactly what this process is. You realize that in the beginning it looks like everything has to dramatically be different for you to be happy. And in the end, if the process completes itself, you realize nothing has to be different for you to be happy. That's transformation. That's what the realization is. The realization is nothing has to be different for you to be happy. The realization is everything is perfect the way it is. Now, obviously, in the mental state that most people are living their lives, that makes no sense, does it, Jim? No. No, all you have to do is watch the news, right? And say, what the hell are you talking about if you're telling me that's perfect, right? Well, first you have to experience who you really are to see what's really happening. And when you experience who you really are to see what's really happening, you realize that this is just a good movie. That's a bitch, you know? It's a bitch to realize that this life that seems so real, that seems so serious, that seems so heavy, right? That seems so pathetic, that seems so stressful, is just a good movie. That's the part that people struggle with the most, especially when that's personal, when the movie involves people close to you dying, or when the movie involves you're being given a terminal diagnosis of cancer, right? That's when the mind and the personality and the conditioning come into play and say, oh no, don't tell me this, don't tell me that's not real, don't tell me this isn't real. Right? It's easy to understand in terms of how pervasive the illusion is. It's easy to understand in terms of how pervasive the illusion is, but it doesn't change what the evidence says. It doesn't change what the evidence says. The evidence says, and this is corroborated by science these days because of quantum mechanics, the evidence says this is a movie. It really is a movie. And you can experience being in the movie, in the drama, going through all of what occurs in the movie, and understand that it is a movie. The understanding is what makes the difference, because the understanding is what you're applying to the way things are occurring to you. If you understand the truth, the way things occur to you changes. If you understand the truth, if you understand who you are, the way you occur for yourself changes. If you understand who other people are, the way they occur for you changes. If you understand reality, the way reality occurs for you changes. And that's where it becomes possible for you to see that everything is perfect the way it is. Because the way it occurs for you changes. And you see its perfection. You see it's just a movie. You see it's just a movie. You see it as it actually is in terms of there are no real consequences. Death isn't real. This isn't really happening. Now that we've understood that, we can really enjoy the movie. You see? That's how you do enjoy the movie, isn't it? Right? Could you go to the movies and sit in the dark and eat popcorn and enjoy yourself if you thought everything on the screen was really happening? Could you? That would be sick. That would make you sick, right? So you have to go to the movie with the understanding that it's not really happening, and now you can eat the popcorn and have fun. If you took away the understanding that it's not really happening, what was entertainment would be a horror show, wouldn't it? Right? If you look at the stuff that's in the movies that people pay to see, right? If they didn't know that wasn't real, wouldn't that be horrible? But we reserve that for the 6:30 news. Right? And you don't pay directly for that information, and you just pay for the commercials in between that information that sell you stuff to give you relief from the stress of listening to that information.
But the worlds, right? People turn their radios on.
That's right. That's right. That's a good example. The Orson Welles, the War of the World thing that happened. For those of you who are not old enough to remember, it was a radio show before television called The War of the Worlds, and it was presented as if there was a alien attack on the planet. And they were saying that the alien ships were landing in Princeton, New Jersey, and all. And people believed it. The people who tuned in late or didn't understand what it was, they believed it. And people killed themselves. People committed suicide because they thought it was the end of the world. Well, there's a lot of movies like that, there's a lot of movies that are made, and in the end you realize it was all a dream, right? And this is one of them.
The Sixth Sense.
That's right, The Sixth Sense. This is one of them. All right, we got to go.